Date with a Debut is recorded and produced on Awabakal Country, and I pay my respects to all elders past and present and extend that to any First Nations people tuning in. Always was, always will be, Aboriginal land. On with the show.
While I was writing Hailstones Fell Without Rain, my daughter said something that really stayed with me. She asked, "Are we living in Uruguay?" And I said, "No, mi amor, we live in Australia." She looked at me and said, "But why do we speak Uruguayan? Why do we eat Uruguayan? Why do we be Uruguayan?"
Welcome to Date with a Debut, a podcast about debut authors, their incredible books, and their journey to publication. If you're looking for a new author to discover or writing inspiration for your own story and you don't know where to start, this is the place to be. I'm Nick Wasiliev, host of the show, and I'm delighted to welcome another debut author in today's episode. If you enjoyed the show, jump online and give us a thumbs up, a 5-star review. It really helps the show out. If you also want to hear episodes when they drop, be sure to subscribe to Words and Nerds, or you can subscribe to Date with a Debut on Podbean to hear the latest episodes as they drop. Want to support the show more? You can also subscribe to my Patreon in the description to get early access to episodes, book reviews, recommendations, and a whole lot more. Wherever you are listening, thank you for listening to us and supporting the Australian book industry. You can also find any books mentioned in today's podcast down in the description. Today, I'm joined by Natalia Figueroa Barroso, a writer of Uruguayan descent and a member of the sweatshop literacy movement. She has degrees in communications, screenwriting, and media production from UTS and has been published in Between Two Worlds, Meanjin, Red Room Poetry, Hobo, Overland, and Griffith Review. We're here today to talk about her semi-autobiographical fiction debut, Hailstones Fell Without Rain, published by University of Queensland Press, which you can get a copy of down in the description. We will discuss some mild spoilers, so I recommend you grab a copy now, or at least very soon. I started off by asking Natalia about coming from the sweatshop literacy movement in Western Sydney and the challenge of straddling a line between fiction and non-fiction when putting this story together. Natalia, welcome to Date with a Debut.
Thank you for having me here.
It's a pleasure to have you here. And before we begin and dive into your book, talking about Hailstones Fell Without Rain, in the lead up to this interview, in typical fashion, I was reading the book and reading up about you. And in classic fashion, I got distracted. It happens to me a lot, honestly. But I discovered that you were involved with the sweatshop literacy movement out in Western Sydney. I saw Amani Hayter's praise, I saw Winnie Dunn's praise, and I thought, I've seen these names before. I've had Dani on the show earlier in the year to talk about his autobiography, How to Dodge Flying Sandals and Other Advice for Life. And I feel like it would be amiss to start off by asking you about the value of the sweatshop literacy movement and how much of a help it's been to your work.
Yeah, so Sweatshop Literacy Movement, I've been published with them since 2018 and learning with them since then. And it has been invaluable because not only did I learn how to write authentically as a Uruguayan from Western Sydney, but also how to ensure that the stories I tell come from my truths, and also how to use craft in a way that's authentic to me as well.
It's so great that there is a group out there in kind of Western Sydney that talks about a lot of these books, and I'm not surprised to hear that there are so many great stories coming out of that group, because I loved Dani's book, for example. And for this podcast, I'm in a great position with you because you're the first writer of, South American and Uruguayan descent on the show. And of course, as mentioned, we've kind of mentioned it in the pre-recorded introduction and also in, promotional pieces around your book, but there's a semi-autobiographical element to Hailstones Fell Without Rain. This story takes place across Western Sydney, but also Montevideo, particularly during around the 1973 coup d'etat, which saw that commencement of the dictatorship that lasted until 1985, which is a major part of this story. I'd imagine that there's, on the topic of your own voice and in your writing in your own style, talk to me about the balance of writing semi-autobiographically, because of course you're pulling from the self when you're crafting this story, but at the same time you've got that in the back of your head that it is a work of fiction as well. Talk to me about that balance and that challenge.
Yeah, so when I started researching and writing about Uruguay's civic military dictatorship, which you have mentioned, 1973 to 1985, I spent a lot of time interviewing people, mostly from the Uruguayan community and including my own family. And of course, I expected all these heavy stories. I expected the ones about police violence, censorship, and forced disappearances. But what surprised me the most was that a lot of the people that I interviewed, nearly the majority actually, started talking to me about the meat and the meat ban. So it turns out that since the 27th of November 1967, way before the dictatorship commenced, the first decree to prohibit the slaughtering and selling of cattle in Uruguay's highest populated and most left-wing, that's really important, the capital of Montevideo, was introduced for a few months each year. Butcheries and the capital were only allowed to sell meats 3 times a week. And for Uruguayans being like one of the largest consumers of meat in the world, that was not enough. And I know it in comparison to the political violence of the time, it seems like a small thing, but it really stuck in the majority of the people that I interviewed, like in their memories. And all the stories that they told me were so wild that I had to try to incorporate at least one of them, or a fictionalized version of it. So I got told that parents used to tell their daughters to hide meat under their skirts as they crossed back into Montevideo. I also got told that some people sent meat in the mail from the countryside. And the wildest one for me was one guy even told me that an ambulance was used to smuggle in an entire cow carcass into Montevideo. And so, of course, I had to include these stories because for me, they were just so good. And I was just like, wow, even during the hardest of times, this was what they wanted to focus on. But the problem, I'm not joking. So I'm seriously not, I'm not joking about this. I even had to go and talk to a doctor of Latin American studies who introduced me to another doctor of Latin American studies who told me there is no research written about this meat ban. And if I was interested in doing that, and then I was like, no, I just want to write a novel. So anyway, so I wanted to write about this, but I didn't live through it, of course. So to write these moments that were, for me, were just so amazing that I had discovered that this was something that the community went through and it affected them a lot. So what I did was I had to fictionalize, obviously, these stories and find my own way into these stories. So I brought versions of myself and versions of my sister and my mother, fictionalized, of course, but emotionally grounded in our real relationships. That way I could explore what might have felt like to live through this meat ban, even if the specific events weren't mine. So the book's blended with semi-autobiographical, drawing from other people's stories and historical truths, but it's told through my personal lens.
It makes so much more sense now when that kind of came up in the book a little bit. I was just like, oh, geez, this is like so much interesting history there. And also, I imagine, like, because obviously you did this with UQP, like,
yes.
In addition, once you got the book together, before we kind of obviously dive into the book and the characters themselves, I just want to ask, about the process of crafting the story with UQP. Was there kind of a process of educating them on, on stuff that surprised you, like the meat ban, history elements, language, which obviously we'll get into and we'll talk a little about in the book, but but also how they helped you with kind of that weaving of that final tapestry?
So I am very blessed that when Sweatshop Literacy Movement, so when Muhammad, the actual founding director of Sweatshop Literacy Movement, said that I was ready. Like he read a short story that I wrote and got published with Griffith Review, and he said that I was ready after that story. He's like, "You're ready to move on to the next. Like, you can write a novel now." And so I started writing the novel, and finally I had my sample and everything. And then Muhammad's like, "Right, where do you want to send it?" And he gave me a list of the publishers that he thought would be interested in it, and UQP was one of them. And when I saw UQP and I saw Aviva Tuffield as the publisher that we were going to email, I was like, I want Aviva Tuffield. And it was just like, I'm willing to wait for her. And I was very lucky that she replied within 2 weeks and said that she was interested in my novel. And she's just an amazing person. She's author-centered. So, I really wanted Aviva because I'm in Sweatshop. I'm a Sweatshop Literacy Movement member. I know other authors that have worked with her and have heard the best reviews, basically, of her. And she not only supported me in everyththing that I wanted to talk about. And sometimes I was like, oh God, like, is this too political? Will this be censored or anyway? Like, I just was like, had this fear that I was going to be censored because there was a moment where I was like, in earlier drafts where I was really going hard on Trump. and then I was like, oh no, and they started to cut back, and then Aviva's like, no, you write, and then we'll figure it out. Don't worry, we'll make sure that your message comes out. So I was very, very, very lucky to have UQP and Aviva Tuffield on my novel.
And that is a great piece of just general advice, I would also say. I think that's just such a great piece of advice of whenever you are writing and sitting down and writing, like, just splodge it out on the page. This is the reason why we have editors, so they can, so they can take everything, all the pieces together and mold into what you can do, which is a fantastic piece of advice. I'm glad that you ended up at UQP because it's the right pick.
Yes, no, it was great. It was perfect for me. And Aviva, we see eye to eye politically and also creatively. So it was perfect. I felt very at home with her.
Well, let's talk about this book. Let's dive into this amazing book, which I have in my hand. For context for all of our listeners, you and I have been having horrific internet for like the last half an hour or so. So unfortunately, I can't physically hold up the copy of the book, and you can't see it on camera. But I'll put up on YouTube a copy of the image of what the cover of the book looks like. It's a beautiful cover. Hailstones Fell Without Rain. This is the part of the show where I hit the author with the classic elevator pitch. I have hopped into a lift. I'm going up with you. You have what's your 1 minute pitch? What is Hailstones Fell Without Rain about?
Yeah, so Hailstones Fell Without Rain is a semi-autobiographical novel that follows 3 generations of Uruguayan working class women from the same family between Western Sydney and Western Montevideo. And the book celebrates matrilineal connection, cultural inheritance with humour and tenderness.
Ding! Nailed it. For context, when we're recording this, the book has literally just come out in the world, so I can tell you've gotten the 1 minute pitch down to a T, which I respect.
That's thanks to my 2 reviews that I had, and I was like, oh, what are they saying? Similarly saying, and then I'm like, okay, these are the 2 things that they're both saying, and that's my pitch.
I love it, but in true form, it covers. It gives you enough tantalizing pieces to want to review more, but it doesn't spoil the beans, spoil all the surprises. This is a story that is engrossing. I loved it. It expands 2 continents, 3 generations. You've got the contrasting worlds of Western Sydney with Montevideo. We've got the historical element, the present day. This is a story that's told from 3 different perspectives. The book is divided as such. There is a 4th, but we will not mention it for spoilers. There is comedy. There is intense love and family bonds. There is lots and lots of bonding over food, which I always adore. There's so much colour. But as kind of alluded to, this is a story tinged with the challenges of the immigrant experience. And their experiences have been coloured by massive world events, kind of talking back to this 1973 event in Uruguay. And ultimately, the interpretation that I got from this book is that it is a story about how one identifies oneself with the memories of your past, which I hope is, I mean, that's of course my own interpretation, but there's a lot about memory and self-identity here. And I know this is such a massive question to open with, talking to you about this, because because there is so much to discuss. But talk to me about bringing those concepts of home and self and memory and intertwining it with the streets of what I know you like to call your birthland and your homeland of Montevideo and Sydney.
Yeah, so it's funny how my daughter's here because she's the one that inspired this. She really did. Just for context, my daughter's 6 now, but she said this when she was 5. So while I was writing Hailstones Fell Without Rain, my daughter said something that really stayed with me. She asked, "Are we living in Uruguay?" And I said, "No, mi amor, we live in Australia." And then she looked at me and said, "But why do we speak Uruguayan? Why do we eat Uruguayan? Why do we be Uruguayan?" And she was right. I just completely was like dumbfounded by that. Because we may live in Western Sydney, but home for us is still Uruguay. We drink mate, we listen to plenas, we watch Súbete a mi moto, we eat guisos. Like our everyday life is soaked in our culture, and we've never left it behind. It's always been a part of us, and we carry it with us. So that realization really shaped how I wrote the novel. I made sure that my Uruguayan characters in Western Sydney didn't assimilate or water down who they were. Instead, they remade and remixed their identity. They remembered their identity and carried it with them everywhere that they went with pride. And then it really did get me thinking that this isn't new for our history, especially for my family's history, because my ancestors have been through this before, living in worlds that didn't reflect their full selves, even eradicating our identity on purpose to claim the land. This is because Europeans, and I say Europeans because it's not just the Spanish that invaded Uruguay. They invaded Uruguay in 1516, and for over 300 years, my Indigenous ancestors resisted, adapted, integrated, survived, and passed on our rituals, such as drinking mate, presenting our babies to the full moon, or burying our dead in the cerros, which are earth mounds. And the same went for my West African ancestors who were enslaved and brought to Uruguay, surviving generations of brutality, while still holding onto our candombe, quilombos, and Yemanja. And that trauma in that legacy, there's strength in it as well. And it kind of gets passed down quietly in memory, in language, in the body, in the way we are. And I wanted to write to that. And Eduardo Galeano, which is a Uruguayan author, for those who don't know, put it powerfully. He said, "En América, todos tenemos algo de sangre originaria, unos en las venas, otros en las manos," which translates to, in America, we all have some native blood, some in our veins, others in our hands. So, and to that, I would also like to add, some of us have both and more. And that's what I wanted to write about, how to bring home meant to bring everything, all our past, bring it back, because we carry it and we don't realize that when I carry a mate around, I'm carrying my Indigenous ancestors. When I'm listening to a plena, I'm carrying my African ancestors. When I'm having empanadas, I'm carrying my Iberian ancestors. So like it's like I wanted to write to that, what it means to be a Uruguayan and all of its blended identity.
That is a fantastic answer to that question. And I love as well that the framework and the lens came from such a direct, brilliant new perspective from your 5-year-old daughter, which I think makes it feel even more special. It's that connection in real time, in a way.
Yeah, and very simply, like it's such a powerful question for a 5-year-old for her to notice that our home is Uruguay. I when she said that, I was like, wow, Western Sydney is full of countries. Like, because in Fairfield, I rarely hear English when I'm out on the streets, and I just think that's beautiful. Everyone carries their countries around, yeah.
Absolutely. And this is actually, I know that, like, honestly, I could pick your brain about all of the cultural elements, but I know that we would truly be here all day and we get so sidetracked from the fact that we have a book to talk about. But there is one thing that I actually do want to talk about, and that, of course, is one of the key things about the book, and that is, of course, language. One thing that stands out to me about this book is that this book is in Spanglish. I believe it's been the first Spanglish novel published in Australia. I believe, according to I think it was Amiga Mia, which did a piece with, and there's a great quote that I want to read here, kind of because you kind of mentioned that, in that particular piece, that growing up in a community where Spanglish is around was extremely important, and language in a way feels like a great microcosm of this story that is also told. And the quote that is, which I'll just read it back here for our listeners, is, "I'm a product of colonialization and immigration. My tongue's heavy with language stolen, blended, and conquered. And Hailstones Fell Without Rain is my mother tongue decolonized and speaking back." End quote. Yeah. Oh, I love it. Talk to me about language in this book, and also specifically why it holds the power it does for this family in this story.
Yeah, so writing in Spanglish for me just comes naturally. It has become my native tongue ever since I started to learn to speak English. One thing that the listeners might not know, that I was born here, but I left to go to Uruguay when I was 2 because the military coup had just ended and my parents wanted to go back. And so I didn't speak English until we came back when I was nearly 8. So ever since I started to learn how to speak English, I started mixing it. And there was something deeply satisfying about blending and remaking 2 colonial languages. And making it, it just felt like I was making something that's me. I'm constructing something that's me out of 2 colonial languages. And in a way, it felt like a small act of decolonization, because in Uruguay, I don't know if there is a piece that you can read that I've written, an essay that I've written about this. It's called A Guide to the Colonization of My Mother Tongues, which is published in Overland, if anyone's interested. But in Uruguay, speaking in our native languages after the last massacre, which was in 1831, was prohibited, and they would cut the tips of our tongues. And then they also separated women and children and elders and placed them each into separate house servitude. So then our Indigenous ancestors couldn't literally not speak to anyone because they had no one to speak to, because they were in a house with everyone that spoke either Spanish or Portuguese, depending where they were situated. And so there's only 68 words recorded, under 70 words recorded by an anthropologist, thank God. So for me, just being able to make a new language out of 2 colonial languages just really felt incredibly satisfying, because our language was taken from us. And what's funny, though, as well, is that this kind of code switching and language blending isn't new in my family, because my Afro-Indigenous ancestors were doing it long before me. My dad's side of the family is from the border of Brazil and Uruguay, in a little country town called El Cerro Chato Rivera. And my grandparents and all the generations before them spoke Portuñol, which is a mashup of Portuguese and Spanish, and another two colonial languages. And it was the way that they were able to use language to speak their truth and find their place in this new society that they were forced to live in. And maybe that's why Spanglish for me feels so familiar and warm, because it connects me to where I come from, while also speaking to where I am now. It feels like I am resisting in a way for my ancestors.
Well, it comes through well in this great story, that kind of extra element around these 3 points of view that we see, these 3 generations. So let's talk about these 3 characters. We've got Graciela, Rita, and Chula. These kind of 3 perspectives in these stories. They're great voices each that we all get a fantastic in-depth look at. There's a deep love and humor between them, but there also is an element of silos. They're different islands. They're kind of in different areas of the chain of dealing with that sort of intergenerational trauma. Graciela, she's arrived in this world from Uruguay. Has these 3 children. She's trying to start that new life, or has been trying to work on that new life for so long, and yet she feels like she's barely keeping her head above water. She has so many moments on the verge of reaching a breaking point, even before we get to those external family pressures and other pressures that play a considerable part in why she's there in the first place. Tell me about her. Tell me about her mindset and headspace.
So Grachu, so all my characters, Graciela, they all have nicknames. So Graciela is known as Grachu. Chula, which is her nickname, her name is Estela Maria. And then Rita, which is her nickname, her name is Silvia Margarita. And that's very common in Latin America. Like, my nickname is Nati. And before that, my nickname was Piolín, which means Tweety Bird, because I was born with a big head, big blue eyes, and tiny body. So it's very common. So it's very common in Latin America to just be named by a nickname. So Grachu is a blend of several people that I know in my life. So she's a blend of my mother, who was a cleaner and single parent during my childhood. She's also a blend of my husband's mother, who was a cleaner and single parent during his childhood in Uruguay, in El Cerro, and me and myself in Fairfield. So they are definitely inspired Grachu. But then also Grachu, she has broken English like my father. So that was where I got inspired by the way she spoke. But definitely I wanted to bring into her that fire that women carry, that only women raising children on their own can carry. And most of the time when you meet a single parent, you go, how on earth do they do it all? Because just being a parent with a partner is difficult. But being a woman, who usually 9 times out of 10, a woman earns less than a man. All the hours they have to put in to make ends meet, all the work they need to do at home, and then also the travel time to and from work. Like, I just wanted to show that about Graciela. And then the million thoughts that are in her mind, because even if she's doing one thing, she has to constantly think about what's coming next, or she also has, because she has so little time to herself, I do have a very deep internal dialogue inside her, because she needs to also entertain herself. Because I kept thinking, oh, she doesn't have much time to be with other people because she's constantly working, going to and from work. And so I just wanted her to have that deep internal dialogue with herself and this vivid imagination. And it's also a space where she connects with Tia Chula, which is her great aunt. So yeah, and she misses a lot.
Yeah, I loved her so much. I kind of had moments where she was like, there were moments where you do feel that pressure and that energy of like, how are you doing this? It's good that you also show that there's moments where she's kind of like an elastic band and she's being pulled in multiple different ways. But she also has obviously her eldest daughter, Rita, who, you know, she's at an interesting point in her life. I found myself connecting to Rita quite a bit. It's of all quite a bit. Trying to be herself. She's trying to explore herself. She's trying to escape those kind of expectations around family. But she loves family. She's searching for the self. But she's also kind of tied to her mother by many of the issues and problems and challenges and ghosts that have bled into her mindset and how she was brought up and everything around that. Tell me a little bit about Rita.
Yeah, so Rita is inspired by myself. There's many things so I'm very happy that you you related to her. She works in film and television, which is my background as well. So Rita is probably the most autobiographical fiction character that I have in there. All the other ones are inspired by other members of my family and friends, and they're like a blend of them. So it's kind of like I did Spanglish, but with all my characters as well. And basically, I just like meshed all these people together and created something new. But Rita is the most autobiographical. So she's discovering herself. And she has a deep love for her mother and her siblings. But she also is a person who has this deep sense of right and wrong. And when you cross that line of what's not right, she does give that time, that distance for the other person who did the wrong to think. But she's not one of those people that are vengeful or anything like that. She's someone that provides herself space and provides the other person space too to think. And that distance is on purpose, is to protect herself, but also to leave that other person to think. Yeah, so that's why I don't want to give any spoilers, but yes, so that's who she is.
Yeah, there's a great. I do. You kind of know that mention of being where, like, if you do cross that line, I kind of felt that some of the ways she kind of uses distance as a weapon in ways, whether it be giving the person in question you have time to think about what they've done, or kind of it can sometimes, not say in a bad way, like deprive them of her presence, but also using it as a self-defense mechanism at the same time. To keep out from other people hurting her in a way too.
She does that with family, and she also does that in the workplace as well. Like when she feels uncomfortable in the workplace, she also provides that space as well.
Yeah, and it dovetails quite nicely into the final kind of main voice that we see, which is of course Chula, who the great aunt who is probably the closest to these events that caused the family to leave Uruguay in 1973, and she. I found her so fascinating because obviously she's very much marked by these events still, even all these years later. There's an element of justice that she's looking to claim, and she's looking to kind of looking back. She looks back and looks at the world around her and the people around her, of course, with deep love, but through that lens of she's been marked by life, and she's been marked by these experiences, which no matter how much you try to hide it, they change you. Tell me about Chula?
Yeah, so Chula is my homage to all those who stayed during the dictatorship, because my family fled, but my husband's family didn't. They all stayed. My husband, I met him in Uruguay in 2009. So when I met his family, I met that other side, the people who stayed. And it was lovely to write Chula. I have a deep love for her. That's why I used the metaphor of the home with her. So she always has like brick fingers, or like she has cement, heavy cement in her stomach. So everything to do with construction, because she can reconstruct herself, and depending on what's happening in her environment. And sometimes she tries to put the wallpaper over a moldy wall, but then the mold still goes through. And yeah, so I just kept, I kept developing on that as well. Like her own home started off as a box, very full of humidity. Then she slowly, the home is emancipating as Chula emancipates, and then at the end, it's also like a reconstructed home. So I played with Chula and her own home, and I wanted her to mimic her home as well. To say there is, she is strong, and she can renovate herself.
This is a great segue to kind of a final question I want to ask you about the book, which is, I mean, obviously we want to avoid spoilers. We want to avoid that, but of course it is a book about trauma and overcoming challenges. And one of the things that you kind of alluded to back when you did the book pitch is that it's a story about women being strong together.
Yes.
It's about the power of bringing that love, that maternal love, and that care and that strength together. And it's something that all three of these characters, as well as other people around her in this community, experience as a collective. From that trauma, there is a collective strength and pride and deep love. What did this book teach you?
Yes, it's actually, I read this before. Sorry, one of my favorite lines from the book, because I had to, that someone asked me my favorite line, and then I had to think about it. And I think that this line kind of says what it taught me, and it's actually on page 6. But dear reader, all Las Ferreira women splinter from the same wood shaft, and that shaft is stronger when they're together, because together they're like arrows in a quiver, waiting to be knocked, drawn, and fired. So
Love it.
That's what it taught me. It taught me that together in a collective, everything is amplified. Everything is better. It's you're stronger. Love is better together. Love can only be done together. You need a relationship. But resistance, memory, everything together is stronger. So that's one thing that I learned, and that I wanted others to learn as they read as well.
You should be really proud of it. It's a great book. It's a really good book.
Thank you. Thank you. The thing that shocks me the most is when people tell me it's funny, because I never ever wrote it intentionally thinking I was being funny. I was just writing truths that I had experienced. So many of the bosses are, inspired by my own bosses. One of the bosses, the designer artist, is actually inspired by my mother's boss. She actually literally had that boss, but she did not last. It was one day. So like when people tell me it's funny, I'm still like, oh, and they're like, yeah, I laughed out loud. And I was like, like I'm still trying to understand, and I appreciate, but I'm trying to understand where my humor comes from, because I did not write it thinking that I was being funny. I just was writing truths and how I saw them.
I think the humor comes in the everyday, and it also, particularly given there is some intense, moments in this story and intense subject matter in this story. It's the light that comes with the experience of being human. I think there's a great quote, which is comedy is tragedy plus time. And I think that's where the comedy lies, is that in the home experience, in those family moments, in those moments where this family is together, there is joy and there is comedy and there is laughter. It's got a big heart, this book, which is which I think is where that comedy comes from. Out of curiosity, what next for you? Will there be another book, or are you just taking the moment to process, heck, I've just written this massive and big story and closed a chapter on my life. Give me a break here.
No, I do have several things. I am one of those people that just can't stop thinking. So I do have another semi-autobiographical fiction, which I'm like plotting at the moment. At the moment, the working title is to drink perfume and eat gardenias. That's the working title. And then I'm also writing a poetry collection, which I have been writing for a really long time, actually. I think that might be the next thing. I've been writing a poetry collection with the working title, Holding My Mothers by Their Tongues. That one I've been working on a while. And then I've got a couple of children's books that I've been writing, and one of them is called The Cuco in My Bedroom, and the other one is Time for La Cama. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. Whatever gets picked up first is where I'll go.
Fingers in many pies. Wow. Gee, it's so many.
I don't stop thinking, trust me. Like, I wake up in the middle of the night because the other day, this is really funny, the dog stole my daughter's blanket. And my daughter woke me up saying, I'm cold. And then I just see my dog curled up on the floor with my daughter's blanket. So he just pulled it off her. And so then I was awake and I couldn't go to sleep. And here I am writing a poem at like 4 a.m, just because I couldn't go to sleep. I'm like, well, I might as well make some use of this time that I'm awake and everything's quiet. So that's welcome to my life.
Sounds about right. To finish off the pod, we do what's called a rapid fire question, which is basically I give you a bunch of questions and I fling them at you, and then you give me the first answer that comes to your head. How does that sound?
Okay, yeah. If a Spanglish word comes out, I'm sorry. You'll just have to.
Oh no, Spanglish words. I expect Spanglish words to come out. So, first question, which is around reading and books. Mm-hmm. What's your favorite book that you've read in the last 12 months?
Dirt Poor Islanders by Winnie Dunn.
Yes. Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah,
and she does talk of in the book. It's together. So definitely, I listened to Winnie's voice, and as I was writing, that must have come through. So
yeah, she's so good. We tried to get her on the show last year, and unfortunately we couldn't pull it together. But it's such a good book, Dirt Poor Islanders. It's a great story.
It's amazing.
Second question. Well, what is your favorite debut novel that you've ever read?
Okay, my favorite debut novel that I ever read is The Tribe by Michael Muhammad Ahmed.
Oh, I've heard about this book. I mean, Dani was singing Michael Muhammad's praises for so much about his work, and so I'm not surprised to hear that The Tribe has kind of. I've heard of this story and book before, and it's currently on my TBR pile. That's the height of the Empire
Yeah.
State Building, but I will get to
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, and there's a new
Mm.
version because it recently celebrated its 10th year anniversary. So yeah, there's a new version as well.
I love it. Love it. Do you have a favorite word?
My favorite word is at the moment bilu, which I did mention in my novel. It means beautiful in Charrua, and I inherited that word from my abuelo Napo, who is the inspiration for Nacho, the character Nacho. So my abuelo Napo, so my abuelo Napo presented me to the moon as soon as I arrived in Uruguay when I was 2. And it's a tradition that Charrua people do. He presented me to the full moon to ask for protection, and he started chanting "Bilu bilu 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 bilu," which means beautiful, 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 and that's how we call the moon to come and protect us. And that's my favorite word. If I have another daughter, that will be her name.
That's a great answer. I love that, and I was really hoping that you'd bring in another word from the book, because there's so many wonderful words and language there. And off the back of that, what do you have a particular favorite Spanglish phrase that you like to bring out in the everyday, or just break out whenever you want?
Spanglish phrase. I do like always saying, like I like saying it feels, I feel a casa, which means I feel at home, because we say me siento en casa, like, and so I do like mixing that together, because it's something that we say when we're with someone that just feels like family.
It feels nice and warm. It feels like a big hug.
Yeah, it feels like chula. Now I can start saying that because chula's the house.
Yeah, I love it. You've kind of talked a little bit about, you view yourself as being connected to both. We kind of talked about earlier, your homeland and your birthland. I feel like you kind of answered this question already when you mentioned the story about the meat ban. But what is something else that you learned about your homeland, or your birthland for that matter, that surprised you when doing the research of this book?
It surprised me that people had to have their IDs with them or at all times, and if they didn't have their IDs with them, they would be automatically arrested. And so that's something that I did write into the book. People had this, and they still carry that with them. Like the other day, when I was going to a protest to march on the bridge for Palestine, my father's like, "Are you taking your ID?" Because I just had my phone on me. And I'm like, yeah, my ID is on my phone. And he goes, no, but if you run out of battery, you need to have a physical ID. Like my father's like traumatized, and I need to carry my ID. And and so I carried my ID with me. So yeah, that's something that surprised me.
It's interesting that it's such a thing that even your dad still thinks and talks about even to this day. On a bit of a lighter note, you get in a lift and your absolute hero is in there. Who is it?
Absolute hero. Oh, they have to be alive, right?
They can be alive. No, they can be alive or dead. Either or. We're easy.
Okay. If they are a person that's dead, deceased, it would be Eduardo Galeano. I absolutely adore his way of thinking and everything he's written. He's got many, many wonderful quotes and that teach you so much. And then alive. Oh God. Alive right now. Let's see. There's so many. No, there really is. There's a lot of people that are like heroes right now. I'll say Tiago Avila, who has been on the flotilla 2 times already, and now going on the 3rd time from Brazil. Yeah,
Love it.
he's a hero.
And then final question, are you happy?
Yes, I'm happy. My daughter just said yes as well.
Yay!
Yeah.
Both Natalia and her daughter are happy.
Yeah, how could I not be happy that I've I don't know if many people know this, but I was in ESL from year 2 all the way to year 10. I failed English most of my schooling life. For me, I've always loved storytelling, but I wasn't good at it because I struggled with the grammar. I struggled with language. And for me, it's just, I'm still in awe that I have been able to write a novel that got published and that I've already had 2 reviews, one in The Guardian, one with Books and Publishing, and they've been beautiful reviews, and I'm just still in awe. And so there's no way I cannot be sad. I have to be happy because it's not even, I was saying to Aviva, I'm like, it doesn't even feel like a dream, really. It feels like I have passed away and I am watching an alternative life happening, an alternative Natalia happening right now. It's just not, it's out of this world for me. It's something that I just never in my life imagined that could happen for me.
Well, wait until it has some time in the world and the book goes off and has a life of its own, and suddenly you'll come across an old secondhand copy that's been well read and well loved in a far part of the world. Then it gets even weirder.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm particularly happy today because I got to chat to you, and the internet held out, which is even better.
Yes, it was great. Yeah, the internet finally held out.
Thank God. But for all of our listeners, you can get a copy of Hailstones Fell Without Rain right now. It's been published by UQP. If you're listening to this podcast, it's literally just come out in the world, but when you're listening, it'll be out. It's been out for a little while, so you can go to check it out, give it a read, learn about another part of the world, learn about another part of Western Sydney. Natalia, it's been such a pleasure chatting with you on Date with a Debut. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And I just want to add as well, because I come from a working class family, if you are not able to buy the book, please go to your local library and ask them to purchase 2 books, so then you and a friend can read along for free. And it still helps authors out as well.
Absolutely, yes. I'm gonna now include that in all of my other podcasts going forward. I'm going to just throw that in here, and I will use that from now on.
Thank you. Yeah, it's just something that because of because my bubble, the bubble that I grew up in, it's all like working class people, and some people that live below the poverty line. It's been in my DMs more than once, several times, people just apologizing that they can't buy my book, and they're like, I'll go to the library, but when I can buy it, I'll buy it. And I go, don't worry, just read it from the library, hire it out, go to another library and request it in another library. It helps us authors as well.
Yes, it does.
So they've been doing that. I've actually had a few cheeky friends going to several libraries and requesting them. So I'm so thankful to my community of little literary revolutionaries.
And I love it as well. There's few things that give a writer more joy than hearing that if you have multiple copies of your book in a library, that all of them have been taken out. It's the best feeling.
Yeah, it is the best feeling. Yeah,
it's true. Yes, be sure to grab a book from either from bookstores, online, or indeed at your local library. Check it out there. Natalia, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It was lovely to speak with you.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Date with a Debut, and for listening to the Words and Nerds channel. You can buy all books mentioned in today's episode down in the description box, and if you enjoyed the show, drop us a review, leave us 5 stars or a thumbs up. It really helps the show out. If you want to hear episodes when they drop, be sure to subscribe to Words and Nerds, or you can subscribe to Date with a Debut on Podbean to hear the latest episodes as they drop. Want to support the show more? You can also subscribe to my Patreon in the description to get early access to episodes, book reviews, recommendations, and a whole lot more. Catch you soon! Date with the Debut is a Words and Nerds and Breathe Art podcast co-production.